Excellent. So, yeah, this picture was taken, that is the south end of Whitehorse in the Yukon, looking due north. And yeah, if you want to see aurora, Whitehorse is one of the better places in the world to see it. So, what am I covering? Well, I'm not covering a comet in Hercules because I didn't notice it. However, Jupiter just passed opposition on the 2nd. So it's as big and close as it gets. We're doing a bunch of evening passes of the space station for the next month. The Leonid meteors peak midnight-ish, November 17th. And I found some interesting stuff on geostationary satellites and how you can or cannot see them. So, Jupiter's moons. Now, again, the opposition was the 2nd. And these are a bunch of stellarium shots as the moons orbit Jupiter. They move back and forth across Jupiter's disk, and you'll get them sometimes very tightly grouped, like here. All 4 visible. That's the 14th. Now, for some reason, I took pictures or took screenshots for 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not like I'm going to be up to see it. This is in the western horizon, obviously, because I'm not a morning person. However, there's another one with the much more spread out, 24th. And another one, you can see these with binoculars. When I try and do the newspaper articles, I pretty much restrict it to binocular stuff because most of the people who read it don't have telescopes. I do, but I can't move it. So I restrict myself to binoculars these days. However, and there's another one. And this is December 1st. This is a rare one at 11 p.m.
These transits?
No, these are just shots so you can see how much Jupiter's moons move. And I mean, the fact is, when you've got a nice big planet hanging there, and you can see in any kind of small scope, you can see the equatorial cloud bands, and then you can see the moons moving. Galileo must have thought he was losing his mind when he saw this stuff 400 odd years ago, like, oh, this is going to get me in trouble for sure. And it did. However, so that's what you can see of Jupiter. Four a.m. Yeah. Tell me how it looks. Good. Okay. Well, we'll scoot through. Not like that, we won't. Okay, the 26th. Yeah, there's Callisto right up there. Yes, we can't see that. Okay. And here they are on December 1st, and you can see they're much more tightly grouped. Now, sometimes you can actually see it, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto in order. It doesn't happen all that often, but it is kind of cool because that's the actual order. And they have the most interesting harmonics because they're synchronized, the moons rotating around Jupiter. I forget what the ratios are, and I'm coming up blank with the synchrony of the moons. That's why Io is so volcanic. Every second time it goes around, it winds up being stretched by Europa, and it gets pulled this way, and the next time it goes back again, and it gets pulled this way the second time it goes around, and then the next time it doesn't. So it's being flexed all the time. And that's what generates all heat inside and makes it puke out molten sulfur into space. It's turning itself inside out slowly because the surface used to be in the middle. Okay, next one. The ISS, you'll notice you get a series of morning passes, depending on the time of year. And then you won't see it except in daylight. And you got to really work to do that. And then it will show up in the evening for a series of passes. And they start, I believe, on the 16th, and they go all the way through December 10th. And the seasons have an effect on this too. But if you notice this one, you first see it in the southwest at 1734. And it comes up over the horizon slowly. You generally start seeing this thing about the time it's 10 degrees above the horizon. It's getting brighter all the time because its distance is decreasing, so it's brighter. And it's getting higher, and you're seeing it through less atmosphere. But the closer it gets, where'd my cursor go? There it is. It starts scooting along here, passes Saturn and the moon, and right there, it goes into the shadow, Earth's shadow, and disappears. But you'll notice there's Jupiter. Well, this one interested me, so I tuned up Stellarium. Now, I did figure out how to download all the satellites and make them load when I started Stellarium. And it took me another half hour to figure out how not to make them show up, because they're going everywhere. You can't get rid of them. It's like moths to a flame. And this is a screenshot. You can just see up here at Jupiter, you can start to see the spread of the moons. I don't know which one's which because I couldn't zoom in without losing it all. But this is the space station here, ISS bracket Zarya. Now this is a long shot. There is a crew ship planned. That's this one right down here. And the space station and whatever that, whatever those capsules are called, I forget the name of them. They move together as they join and later as they separate. So they're doing a crew transfer. All of that is totally dependent because this is, 10 days in the future. If they do an attitude adjustment or an altitude adjustment burn on the space station to boost it back up, that will slow down its orbit slightly and the times will be different. So all of this is all dependent on how much fuel they burn on the space station, because they've obviously got to keep it out of the thick air. And the crew transfer ship has to match. So, however, if there are any people with fancy computer run cameras that can set them to take a whole bunch of quick, fast photographs, if you run Stellarium, the space station on this image, and remember, you're looking east. The station is going from the upper right to the lower left, and it takes seconds to go by Jupiter. If you could get a series of quick photographs of that, you might be able to actually see an image. It'd be teeny of the space station, but it's not that far away. If you can get 40 magnification of that, you'll see the shape of it, and you could get a movie of it going by Jupiter. And at 40 power on Jupiter, you can see its cloud bands and you can see its moons. So that's the challenge, one of them. I shall leave it to people with more energy, initiative, and equipment than I.
Is the other ship gonna be attached to it that morning? Or night?
Hard to say. According to this, they've separated. It's all contingent.
I wonder if the night was passed before or something.
You probably could.
But I've seen them together.
Yeah.
Just when they're just separating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I caught one of them when I was up in Whitehorse, actually. And you can see the space station from Whitehorse in the Yukon. It's about 15 degrees above the southern horizon. It's 750 miles south of you. But I saw it moving along like this. It comes up low in the west, southwest, moves across, and because it's so far away, it moves more slowly and goes down in the southeast. And it was the space shuttle ahead of it, and the space station following it. It was way cool. Yes. Okay, Leonid meteors. There's no moon that night. If it comes above the eastern east-northeast horizon just before midnight, and there's no moon, which is good for seeing more meteors. Now, the rate for Leonid meteors is only about 20 per hour, but they tend to be fast and bright. And this one, it's the remnants from Temple Tuttle, discovered 150 odd years ago. It's the one that has storms. There was incidents, I think in 66. Certain places in Europe, they estimate it was 10,000 per hour. It was raining meteors. And apparently people had the overwhelming feeling, because the radiant was well up in the sky, they got the feeling they were moving through space, like the special effects in all the Star Wars films, where the stars just zoom by you. Apparently it was pretty striking. Not this year. We don't think.
We had a storm here in 2001. Yeah, 2001.
Okay.
It was clear.
And you saw it?
That's it.
Oh, good. I didn't. However, now I got this picture off Sky and Telescope, I think. And this sort of shows, it's not a bad little schematic. It took me about 3 minutes to figure out, why is there this arrow over here on the right showing flight 3 minutes? And after a while, my math brain kicked in and said, oh, that's how far the Earth moves in 3 minutes. We're going 60,000 miles an hour through space. And it's a good thing it's a vacuum, because it would part your hair. Anyway, we're obviously right about there. And we won't have the moon. So that's cool. Now, one more challenge. I was wondering about geostationary satellites. Now there's geosynchronous and geostationary. Geostationary are fixed in their declination, up or down. They're right on the equator. Geosynchronous can be tipped slightly, and they'll do sort of a figure eight, back and forth, north and south of the projection of the Earth's equator. They're at the same distance, so they're not drifting east or west, but they're not right on the equatorial plane. And that's expensive real estate on that equatorial plane. And the gentleman who was doing the talk on space junk 2 months ago, was it? Yeah. He was talking a lot about this. It kind of got me thinking, I wonder. And I started snooping on the internet. There are people who have been able to see some of these things naked eye at particular times of the year. And I wondered about recording them somehow. And as I say, you can see things against the fixed background of stars. And I try to throw in one good joke every session, hence point number one. Normally, astrophoto equipment compensates for the Earth's rotation by counter-rotating to show the stars as fixed. Now, that works great if you want to record the stars. But if you want to record something that's moving with the Earth, you turn your tracking off and you'll get star trails with some fixed objects, which if you take a long exposure may well be bright enough to see. And they're probably the geostationary satellites that are sending us our cable TV, et cetera, and various electronic intelligence satellites. There's a horde of them up there that are apparently Chinese. And I wonder why they'd all be clustered over the United States. It's a mystery. Anyway, this, I think, is this little insert here. I saw that in this article online. I can't save it. I can't source it. All I could do was copy and paste. Couldn't blow it up, couldn't do anything. It's someplace. So the legend at the bottom left shows Boeing 70, others 222. These are communication satellites. And I suspect Boeing had something to do with this. So the more interested of you may notice there's a big gap right here. Now the plane and the Earth are tipped slightly, but there's nothing over the Pacific because there's nobody underneath it. So who needs it? Anyway, there's oodles of them up there. So at that altitude, 22,236 miles, their period matches Earth's. They do have certain adjustments they have to make routinely to keep them in the spot they're assigned, because the Earth's gravitational field is not perfectly smooth. And there's this silly thing going around the Earth once a month that'll pull everything out of alignment. And apparently one of the best spots is right over Sri Lanka. There's a heavy spot there. And it's a stable point in the Earth's gravitational field. I don't know why. Arthur C. Clarke wrote about that in a novel called Stairway to Heaven or something like that, I think. A space ladder from Sri Lanka to orbit. Now, because we're north of the equator, you've got to look below the equator. Here it's 7.2 degrees. So if you can't, this is a stellarium shot. If you can turn on the celestial equator and you can see what's, say, due south. I mean, you can see them east and west of due south, but they're easier to see at due south because they're the closest to us. If you look 7.2 degrees below that and take a stellarium screenshot, you'll know what to look for to set up your camera and then start taking pictures. And if you turn the tracking off, this is what you can get. And I don't know who did this. The reference, I couldn't copy it. However, you'll see all the stars trailing rather. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 geostationary satellites. And Neptune is going by right here. So if you can image Neptune, you can get these satellites. Because Neptune is, I've never seen it, or not that I'm aware of anyway. So for those of you who want a challenge and have the energy and equipment to do something about it, I'd love to hear about it, and we'll throw it into what you've discovered next time. And that aircraft is not my airplane. It's similar to it. My first one. I had a Citabria, the cheap one. This is the really expensive version. A decathlon that has inverted oil and fuel systems. Mine was aerobatic, but if you tried that, the engine quit. And you don't want the engine to quit when you're 20 feet off the deck inverted. It's a very expensive way to end your flight career. So that's it. Thank you.